set? All right, I believe it's 7 o'clock, we can get started. We did call this meeting in regard to the Birdsong project, and we'd like to welcome everyone here. Would you join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Bishani?
Here.
Mr. Giordano?
Here.
Mr. Kelsel?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Mixel?
Here.
Mr. Ortiz?
Here.
Mrs. Martin? Here. Mr. Taylor?
Here. This application tonight is, we just had one application, that's the reason for this meeting. It will be a public hearing. We will eventually open it. Mark, you want to go into?
Birdsong at Conover Cove subdivision located between the east end of Conover Cove Lane and Webster Road. Applicant Grove Underhill LLC is requesting preliminary final subdivision and site plan approval along with a public hearing associated with the creation of 9 lots or construction of 8 single-family residences and an associated stormwater management facility on a 5.55 acre parcel located in an R3 single-family residential district under sections 269.11, 296.20, and 350.12 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Okay, thanks. Well, before you even start, the main reason we're here tonight is for secret, environmental issues and stuff. And as you recall, a lot of you were here at the last meeting. It was determined to go through the secret process, so on and so forth, which we did. Part of that is notifying, excuse me, notifying interested agencies who may want to do this, like the DEC, the county, anybody besides us. Well, nobody wanted to touch it. They all, nope, you guys take care of it. Planning board, so that's why it's back to us. So now after this, then we have to make a determination on it, taking lead agency for us. So I guess we have to do a motion on that, right? So you want to do that, Eric? What's that? Well, we probably, what do you think? What do you think? Okay, all right, go ahead, Fred, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Fred Shelley from BME Associates representing the applicant Grove Underhill LLC. Also in the audience with us is Mitch Brodsky and Jeff Bell with the applicant. I'd like to share our appreciation and thanks to the planning board for scheduling this special meeting to allow for the coordinated review for seeker for the continued hearing of the request for preliminary and final subdivision and site plan approval for this 8 single-family lot subdivision. One more lot is included for a stormwater management parcel. From the last meeting, there have been no plan revisions made since the August 6th meeting, and the design maintains the proposed 600-foot dead-end public roadway with the buffer to the Conover Cove Lane dead-end area. It maintains proposed public utility construction, including sanitary, storm sewer, stormwater management areas, and water mains. And the proposed parcels comply with the zoning district regulations regarding the lot area width and the setbacks. Just further review of the site, the parcel appears to have been zoned single-family residential for several decades, and although several updates to the town comprehensive plan have occurred in that time frame, this parcel does not appear to have been identified by the town as a area for conservation. In regard, as we're doing seeker and we're reviewing the project's environmental setting and potential impacts, we are in receipt of the Town Conservation Board project review report dated August 12th of this year. The Conservation Board noted the following. They identified that there were several maples on the site with recommendation of retaining them. Indicated the site is heavily treed parcel, but it's mostly small growth and brush. The Conservation Board recommended a dead-end roadway, retaining current natural buffer, and then there was a recommendation for a stormwater management facility relocation. In addition to the Conservation Board's report, the applicant also acknowledges the comments that were made from the public during the past 2 planning board public hearings, and specifically with suggestions to conserve on-site natural areas and buffering to the Birdsong Trail property. The site was reviewed for occurrence of threatened, endangered species, or plants or animals, or natural communities, and none were identified per the DEC environmental assessment mapper online software. We have reviewed aerial photographs of the area, and the proposed development area appears consistent with development along the Birdsong Trail and town property. We do note that the trail, specifically adjacent to the site, is between approximately 120 and 270 feet from the property line of the project. Also, continue to review both within the Conifer Cove Lane, Blue Creek Drive, Bell Arbor Terrace. This is pretty consistent within this area for setbacks along there. There are lots that have clearing up to the property lines, and they are within that 120 feet. In some cases, they may be less from the existing bird sanctuary trail. The applicant maintains the belief that mature trees do bring value to the project, and will commit to retain and preserve healthy trees 8 inches in diameter and larger within up to 10 feet of the project south boundary line, just to address some of the comments received from the public. These tree locations will be added, they'll be located by survey, and they'll be added to the plan for appropriate protection provided around the trees, including up to the drip edge during construction. The applicant has also requested that we locate additional healthy live trees within the rear yards, proposed rear yards of these lots, and review and potentially revise the site design to selectively retain any selected trees that we can do while maintaining the overall consistency with the proposed development. We have provided written responses to the town's review comments in a letter dated June 26th. That was the July 17th PRC comments. We understand that the town highway department may have a few more minor comments pertaining to the layout of the proposed hammerhead turnaround, and we'll work with the town to address those comments as the project progresses. We've also received the typical review comments from the Monroe County Planning and Development Office, and we're working to address those comments as we proceed through the approvals of this project. With that, happy to open up to any questions from the board, or carry on.
Okay, at this point, anyone have any questions you'd like to bring up? Or concerns on this? What we could do is, should we open this to, right now? Open this to the public? Probably the easiest way to see what comments. Yeah. All right, what we'll do, we'll open the meeting, and please, I'm going to ask you to go up to the microphone. What's your name and address? We've got several people here, and we don't want to drag this. My attention span is about this long. After 5 minutes, I don't know what you're talking about anymore. I don't know if anybody really would understand after that one. So keep it down to like a 3-minute conversation. If the person has already, if someone has already spoken in regard to whatever, trees, water, drainage, please limit it. Let's just don't repeat the same thing over and over. We get nowhere with that. So if anyone would like to start, go ahead and speak. Just go up and give us your name. Just go up to the microphone.
Hi, John Radico, 1235 Stafford Crescent. I've just recently become aware of this, so this is kind of an ignorant question. But it's my understanding that this was private property that the developer's going to be building on. And I'm just curious, is that all, or is there more to come? That's the entirety of the property that's under review.
That's correct.
After that, no more building.
That's correct. It's five, I believe, like 5.5 acres?
Yes.
Total parcel, 5.5 acres. That's it. Yes, that would be it.
Okay, and I'm just curious too, why it's sloping down on the left side of the backyards. It doesn't matter to me, but I'm just curious, why isn't it straight across for the back
All right,
lots?
just give us your questions, and then we can have them respond to that then. Is there another question?
No, that's, for now, that's all I got.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. So we'll have it responded to. Anyone else wish to speak? Somebody wants to talk, I know you've been sending letters left and right. A lot of them don't even make any sense, they're totally whatever, but, you know, I'm gonna bring something up, actually, go ahead up.
You want to go first?
No, you go ahead. We, last meeting, there were comments made that the developer was going onto the Birdsong Trail, destroying some of the property, so on and so forth. Folks, this is misleading information. Stick to reality. Stick to reality. Then, after a little research at it, the town highway department had to go in there. Excuse me?
Sir, I was at that meeting. They didn't say this developer. They said the person down that's developing on Orchard.
Well, it wasn't him either.
Well, I'm just saying what I
All right,
heard.
we're not gonna get into it, but I don't care who it was going to, who thought it might have been, but the point is, that was the town highway department had to go in there to resolve a serious drainage issue that had occurred. Now, they didn't tear down trees, it was brush, minor stuff, they had to clear out an area to work, and that was it. And this is how this gets blown, where everybody's like, oh, the town's in there, they're tearing it, the builders do it. Folks, get your information right, please, before you do this. It is very, very frustrating for us up here to have to listen to that and try and resolve it. So anyways, I blew my smoke out. Go ahead, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Okay, hi, again, everyone. So Diana Davis, 942 Jaywood Lane. So I guess a couple things in order. One, I find it disappointing that no amendments have been made to the site plan since August 6th, even though we obviously identified the relevant items of the code that should have been taken into account prior to planning board approval, particularly those items which stipulate that the town planning board should require of the developer a survey of existing mature trees. I don't think that it's within keeping of the code to then provide the developer with the planning permission under the promise that they potentially might revise the site design. So to that end, our group has actually provided all of you with evidence of existing mature trees on the site. In fact, there were 82 of them, all throughout the site. So exhaustive effort on our part, something that the developer really should have commissioned if he really does feel that mature trees add value to a property, then that's something that really this is a woodlot and that should be the priority. It's also existing habitat and that needs to be taken into account. You know, the town planning board has within its remit the ability to insist upon the preservation of that existing vegetation and wildlife habitat pursuant to 296-16, item 13, right? So I think, you know, really where we're coming from is we don't want to see planning permission given until such time as the site plan has actually been revised in good faith to show that there is a genuine attempt to preserve the wildlife and the habitat. As I understand it, given that we have proven that there are mature stands of trees throughout the site, failure to have required that documentation from the developer indicates a decision on the part of the town planning board that such was not required, and that would be erroneous, and that would be grounds for the citizens to file an Article 78. Further to that, the Conservation Board's report was quite frankly false. They're obviously not all dead ash and small trees. Clearly, somebody from the Conservation Board didn't actually walk the property.
Actually, they did. They actually did photographs.
Well, they obviously didn't measure the trees, because I can tell you that there are 82 trees that are quite large, and they're not just maples. So I also want to correct a falsehood. The town actually did identify this as a parcel worthy of conservation, and Mitchell probably doesn't remember this, but I spoke with him in the summer of 2022 when our group was working with the town, looking into basically assembling a database of parcels worthy of preservation, and this was on our list. It was put together by John Behan, who some of you might remember was the consultant that worked on the 2005 referendum which passed. Although the town decided not to pursue a referendum, that parcel still remains one worthy of consideration for conservation because of its proximity to the Birdsong Trail. And it's being across from, obviously, the rec center. In fact, we would love for the town to purchase this property and turn it into a park. That would be
Okay, you're
phenomenal.
almost done now. We don't want to hear a whole litany of everything over the years. Just
I
want-
think she's making good points, though, and you have to listen. It's very disrespectful, your
I'm not
tone.
being.
It is very disrespectful, your tone.
What did I say in the first place? I said.
You have said a couple things tonight, and I'm a very good listener as a teacher. And I don't like, I don't like the tone. Please let her speak. She's making excellent points.
We gave 3 minutes. I set ground rules from the beginning. It's over 3 minutes. You're not making.
She's making excellent points. You should
I am
just
almost
listen
done.
out of
If I could
courtesy
just-
and preservation of the land. It's just not right.
We did receive your paperwork.
Yeah.
We received it at 4:30. What would you expect these board members to do with this when it got to the town hall at 4:30? When are we supposed to review this?
Well, I guess I would have hoped that tonight wasn't a fait accompli, given that it is a public hearing, and that given that we submitted it within the public comment period, which includes tonight, it needs to be taken into consideration. A decision should not be made based upon evidence that you didn't have. So, yeah.
Now, back just a little bit on the trees though. All the developments over the years have come in where you live, where we all live. There were trees. How do you get, somebody suggested an arborist, go in there and mark the trees. What happens if you've got a really good tree that ends up having to be like where the middle of the road is? See, this is all we can do is try and save the best trees once a development is approved and a house is going to be built.
I think that you can do more than that. I think you can do more than that. There's certain neighborhoods in Webster which are heavily treed, and just because it costs the developer more money, I feel that the responsibility here is towards the people of Webster and the habitats of Webster, not towards the developer, who, you know, inherited the property from his parents, is a property manager of other properties. This is not his retirement. He's not going to be destitute, okay? I do feel that this is a case of convenience over, you know, convenience being chosen and the well-being of the people of Webster being sacrificed if this gets, you know, developed as it is. I mean, the fact that not even a single amendment was made since August, that's just total disregard. It's clearly in the code. I clearly mentioned the item in the code that the developer should have adhered to. Go get somebody out there and survey the trees. Make amendments to the site plan. You can't approve it without that having been put forward. That's legal standing right there. I'm sorry.
Well, there isn't anybody disagreeing with you on that.
Okay.
I said earlier, this isn't, the intent here was to take a lead agency and move forward with comments that need to be addressed. We are not approving this.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is, we're putting a cart before the horse. It's like you guys got it figured, this is a done deal, and there's a lot of issues that need to be resolved.
And I'm sure you can
We agree.
understand. It's an emotional issue for a lot of people, and I think honestly, it's just because you know that this is like huge priority for everybody in Webster. There's so little, it's like everybody is very emotionally attached now to whatever woods we have left because there's not a lot left. And so, you know, I do appreciate everything that you guys are doing. And, you know, the fact that it's a secret type 1 is huge. But I really do want to see the developer do more. We actually mocked up very unprofessionally, I mean, I'm sure it's not like to engineering standards, but we did do a model of the type of site. If they want to look at it, keeping the tree line close to the houses and keeping mature vegetation throughout. So, that's all I have to
All
say.
right, that's good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm Cecilia Robello. That name might strike a bell because you got pictures of wildlife from 1291 Foothill Circle. I disagree with the DEC. In there is a picture of a hot pink, neon hot pink cardinal with no black markings. I'm not an ornithologist. I chose not to contact Cornell because, quite honestly, I didn't want a bunch of Twitters coming through my backyard and turning it into a research site. That bird comes from the property under consideration. And you will see the amount of wildlife, and you will see the trails leading from that property into my backyard since 1986. In response to not getting the paperwork about the trees, we expected when we woke up this morning that it would have been delivered by the developer as we thought was requested. And when we woke up this morning, we discovered it was not there. And so a member of the group spent their time going out with tape measures and doing the job of what I consider to be the developer's job. We did it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to go? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Doug Lobello, same address as the previous speaker. 91 Foothill Circle. My property immediately abuts this development to the north. The entire side of my property abuts, the backside of my property abuts this proposed development. I appreciate that the property is zoned R3. I can accept that because so is my property. On the other hand, we can't pick and choose what elements of the town code we follow. We must follow them all. The town code specifies that new properties must minimize impact on existing vegetation and wildlife. This proposed development cannot be put in place and simultaneously fulfill that element of the town code. You have the citations on some of our literature. The other element of the town code has to do with the impact on adjacent properties, not just ours, but the birdsong trail did not exist until a few years ago. Bird sanctuary trail, excuse me, did not exist until a few years ago. This proposed development immediately abuts it, and the impact on that for wildlife and vegetation will be severe. The wildlife currently abiding in the property under consideration is going to be forced off that property and onto the bird sanctuary trail and adjacent properties. They've got nowhere else to live, and you've have a chance to look at the document Water Wildlife. We fully documented large and diverse and characteristic fauna that call the property home now. I submit to you that it is impossible to develop this property and still follow those two elements of the code. That is the impact on vegetation and wildlife that is required, and the minimization of impact on existing properties. I do not believe that this property can be developed and be consistent and compliant with those elements of the town code. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, sir.
My name is Larry Ritson-Taylor. I live on Webster Road, just north of it, Birdsong Trail. And we've lived there for 42 years, and Route 250 is like an expressway. And I have no doubt that Mr. Brodsky will, in the end, will be building a subdivision. What bothers me the most is the access to Route 250. Why is it blocked off at Conifer Cove? Why don't they just have access through Conifer Cove and block it off at 250? So I wouldn't be very popular with people on Conifer Cove, I'm sure. But just wondered why it's blocked off the Conifer Cove. And, only accesses are at Webster Road.
And you mean dead end it right at Webster Road? And come
Yeah.
down Conifer to it and then back out
Yeah,
on
you
the
could have
Conifer?
blocked off the Conifer Cove,
Uh-huh.
open that up and block it off Webster Road.
The intent was, see, when Conifer Cove was built, the intent was to run that road straight through. And the people that were living in there were, you know, they were opposed to it, and because all the traffic from the north of that and so on would be able to exit out there.
Yeah.
And they didn't want the additional traffic going, so the board looked at it and said, well, okay, we'll just keep this as a separate, small 8 lot. So that's how that,
Well, you'll
that's how
notice,
that transpired. But now, I think a lot of that probably would be the result of the fire marshal's review on it also, for fire access and so on.
you'll notice there's a crosswalk just to the south of that, and people can't even get across the crosswalk. Cars don't stop.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's gonna disagree with you. The traffic, you're right, you're 100% right, we know that. You know, it's, that's a state road. Does the state need to do something with it? I mean, that's beyond our control. And you're right, I understand what you're saying. I don't have a solution to it. All we can do is look at what's put in front of us. Does it meet the requirements? There's no variances. There's nothing necessary for us to try and modify out of that. We can't, the subdivision to, where is it? Sagebrook, is it? There's lots in there. These lots are full-size lots. You look at Sagebrook, I got a letter from one gentleman over there complaining about this, and I'm looking where he lives. His lot is almost half the size of one of these lots. They're jammed in there, it's an MHR zone. So that subdivision on that many acres probably has twice as many houses. See, so we did not set the zoning. We deal with what the code says the zoning is.
Well, like I said, my main concern is the access to Webster Road, and I think it should have been through Conifer Cove.
No, we'll take it, I understand. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Denise Jackman, 27 Westover Drive. When is the last time the code was updated?
I believe 2008, was it?
Yes.
Am I right with that, Judge, remember? Well, you don't, you weren't here.
Certain parts of the code have been updated.
Oh, there's, yes.
The
that's
major
true. Yeah, there's been parts
So
regulated.
it's 2024.
That was
2008 sounds like a long time ago. I believe that is 16 years. Is that on the docket to consider looking at that again and
Yes.
updating it? Because since 2008, there's been quite a bit of development. Do we all agree?
Yeah, well.
Okay, so when we talk about the streets and the traffic and that you can't cross the street to hike the Birdsong Trail, the reason is because of all the development that's been allowed to go through. So when we talk about these wooded lots or these beautiful properties that many residents, they're not all here tonight, would love to have preserved, when we defer to a plan over a decade old, and we say, well, you know, the code allows for that. Is it about time that given all the, I would argue, overdevelopment, you might just call it development, with all the development in the town, might it be time, considering that these plots of land that are left for green space, for human beings to enjoy, commune with nature, to have animals, could we now that this number gets increasingly, you know, the number is smaller and smaller and smaller, if we keep deferring to a plan that's over a decade old by a lot, could the next matter of business be that we need to update that plan? And I'll volunteer to work on it with anyone who wants to do so, if you're allowing for public comment.
Actually, right now, you're right, though. Right now, they are working on updating the comprehensive plan.
Who is they?
The town.
Can
Meaning
I just speak and provide an update, just so that
Sure, go
everyone
ahead.
has the
Yep,
facts?
yep.
So the town did recently release a request for proposals to get some consultant assistance Those proposals were received on Friday last week, okay? And now-
Request for proposals of further development, is that what you're
No,
talking about?
for professional planning consulting services to
okay.
help update the existing comprehensive plan.
Okay,
So town staff is in the process of reviewing and selecting a consultant.
Okay.
And we will be publicly kicking off the project later this year.
later this year, and an expected new plan might be mid next year,
I would say it would take at least 12 months.
12 months.
And there will be a lot of opportunity for public involvement.
Okay, but you understand where I'm coming from, that we are, the developer and those who are here tonight, we are on two opposite sides of the fence. Those of us who are here are clearly in favor of protection of green space. It is good for humans, it is good for animals, and then we have the money side, the development side. But we have a plan that's borderline out of date. And so when you say to me, well, look, I can show you in the plan that it says this is allowed for zoning. But again, we're talking 16 years old, and you've allowed so many, or the planning board, or the town, or whatever the entity is called. You have allowed so much development in this town that to say, oh, you know, I think it's about time, and I'm glad to hear you say it's afoot. But the time is at hand, because there are too few properties left. And yes, I have said it before. You have two types of residents here. You have humans and you have animal residents here. And they need to be taken into account. They are not fluffernutter. They are creatures that depend on us. And I'm not asking you to save every deer known to Webster. But we're talking about a property that when I am out driving, there's a lot, there's an empty lot right opposite Bell Arbor. Is that what it's called, Bell Arbor? And it's just open grass, and it's almost like there's a home and just a free space in the middle. Sometimes when I have come out of Bell Arbor, 7 o'clock, 7:30, do you know I witness deer playing? They're playing. These are creatures that have feelings and their families, and just watch a PBS show any night to get a sense of what animals are all about. They're not just, you know, fluffernutter, and nobody has to take into account where they go. They cannot live in a subdivision. That is not a habitat.
Okay, we got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else we should, yes, sir?
Good evening. David Kansnow, 784 Daventry Circle. Thank you. We'll keep it real short. I don't live anywhere near this property. I live closer to West Webster. I can tell you that a few years ago, a large wooded area just north of where I live, north of Gasper, development of single-family homes went in. And there weren't a lot of homes. My recollection is it's 16 of them. But the habitat was destroyed. And I'm not a big Bambi person. But the deer need a place to live. And right now they're living in our backyards on Daventry Circle because their habitat was destroyed. And they're probably crossing the street at night in the dark where it's sometimes hard to see them until they're wrapped around the front bumper.
Yeah.
So I give serious consideration to taking down more wildlife habitat space anywhere in Webster because the wildlife has fewer places to live, and they do end up in the backyards of homeowners in our wonderful town. That's all I have to say. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Deanna Sloniker, 853 Phillips Road. Nowhere near there, but I walk through there several times a week. Also, does anyone know what happens with habitat fragmentation? All the mice stay. They carry Lyme disease and other diseases. That's how Lyme disease spreads. Not through the deer, it's through the mice. Also, why do we need a drainage management facility? That's what the trees and the vegetation are for.
Yes, sir.
I'm Dr. Bernie Marcus. I am a retired biologist, not a physician, and I've worked on a number of environmental impact projects similar to this. I just want to point out that in spite of whatever the developer does to deal with surface and subsurface runoff, when you have a suburban development, you're going to have fertilizer, you're going to have pesticides. These are all going to run off. They're going to end up in Mill Creek. They'll end up in the pond that's being developed, and it'll turn into another, basically algae, actually. That's all. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? I'm going to tell you guys a little story. It's going to bore you. You'll fall asleep with this one. But I think the opinion of a lot of people is this board is here to just push development through. Well, I'm going to tell you a little story. Years ago, I'd go home after a planning board meeting. My wife's maiden name was Clem. Clem Road was their family farm back in the 1800s. And I used to hear from her, what the hell are you guys doing with this? So I didn't only catch it here. When I went home, I caught it there too. So our feeling is, we're not pushing for development. We're doing what the code says we're supposed to do. That's it. Nothing more. We're not looking to push development. Your comments are all well taken. But the reality is, this is what the code says and this is what we
But that was my point, right? The code says, this is the Bible. And
Yeah,
it seems
I'm
like it's
talking now,
on.
you're not talking, sorry.
Okay.
I gave you a chance to talk, and we listened. You just don't interrupt like that. Thank you. You talk about me being arrogant.
No, I'm irritated. That's what I am.
Well, what do you want me to do about it?
Well, I guess, as I said before, if I can speak from the chair, we're talking about an outdated code. And there has been
Hold
so
it,
much.
we're not talking about an outdated code. This meeting is not about an outdated code, okay?
But I'm
This
making,
meeting
I'm
is about a
referring back
project.
to the comment I
All
made,
right.
that you're deferring to the code. There's
You're
been-
done, stop.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to speak? And your points were all, yes ma'am, your points are all well taken. But we're doing what the code is allowing, that's it. Yes ma'am, again.
Thank you for letting me
No, that's
talk
all right.
again. I don't think the problem is with the code, as my husband pointed out, and if you follow the code, which is your charge as the planning board.
We do. We do.
I'm not saying you don't, okay, I'm sorry if
Oh,
you're
okay, I
taking
thought
it
that was
that
the
way.
interpretation.
That's not what I'm saying, okay? I'm saying if you follow the code right now as it's written, you're in quite a quandary because you've got an R3, but the code is telling you something else. You've got to follow it all. You can't pick and choose, as you very well know. What's out of date is the comprehensive plan that overall hasn't been addressed since 2008. And for someone to go in and tell us that we only have a couple of trees, when one of our people went in and literally took almost the whole day to measure all those. And it was 16 years ago. Trees grow, as we all know. So what we as a community are asking you to do is look at the whole thing and look at the code. And I believe that this development cannot go through if you follow this code. There's two parts of it. I'm not going to bore you. You probably dream of it at night. But you can't do the protecting and allow building to occur. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, we should actually have to seeker. Yeah, there's only one question, Fred, sure, there was one question somebody asked in the beginning, I didn't.
Yeah, if the board has any specific comments they'd like us to respond to, we're happy to do that. One of them that did pop up was the State Route 250 and the access. The access plans have been submitted to the state DOT for their review. They're reviewing the site distances. We did proactively reach out to the state before we came in with the concept plan, and the state DOT came back and mentioned that there were no concerns with the additional access to the road.
Somebody early on asked a question, and I was going to have him address it. Yeah, what was it?
The question the gentleman asked was the one line, why isn't it straight? The property line.
That's an easy one.
Go ahead.
That line isn't straight, that's just what has been left over. I believe there was condemnation on a portion of this property.
It was gonna, an expressway was gonna go through there.
Okay.
And the state condemned it, and
Yeah.
the town ended up with the land.
Okay. See, some of, I said this before, I mean, the town of Webster has more open space and open lands, park lands, whatever you want to call them, than any community in Monroe County. And I sometimes question, are we smart doing this? Maybe the town should not have taken Birdsong Trail initially. I mean, what do we do? I mean, if we didn't take it, we wouldn't be here sitting with arguing about all this. But yet, we want to preserve the land, and this is what the town has been doing. But it comes back and bites us in a case like this now. And people who moved in just a stone's throw from this. Their lawns aren't even established yet, and they come in complaining that there's a development going in over by Birdsong. That's frustrating, very frustrating. Anyways. All right, anyone, board members, any comments? No? Again, we have to make a motion for lead agency.
Can I say something?
What?
Can I get up and say something?
Oh, I'm sorry, sure, go ahead, go ahead.
Laura Johnson, 1190 Scandia Drive. The comment about the fact that we have more green space than any other place, great, we should keep it that way. Just because we have more parks or whatever, doesn't mean we develop everything we have left. I mean, we have so much development going on in the last couple of years here. I'm just beside myself. Every time one of those signs pops up, they just go in and clear cut. So yeah, and it is your job to deal with that stuff. I'm sorry you feel like it's a burden that the town took on the bird sanctuary trail. You should be thankful you have that. It's an awesome place that we have in our town. So it's a good thing that we have so much green space. Keep it.
I agree.
Don't keep giving it out.
But we're not giving it out.
Well, don't keep
This land
developing
was
it.
there, ma'am. Somebody could have bought this and made it part of the parkland. That's all I've ever said. I'm with you
Well,
100%. I'm saying a person
It's not
buys
what
it.
you said, but I'm not gonna
The
argue
land-
with you.
okay,
I'm not
thank you.
arguing with you.
The land is zoned in such a way that the applicant is entitled to build, and in this case here, there's no variances, there's nothing requested other than to meet the code with 8 houses. That's it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Rodney Geisbrecht, I live in Confer Cove, and I'm a relatively new, resident here. But, and I realize this might be out of the question, but surely the developer has a price in mind where he would be agreeable to selling it to the town, given the fact that so many people are so captivated by the conservation and the habitat value of this piece of property. And I have to admit, I am too. and I don't think that I'm gonna be living here that long, but I feel that I wouldn't be doing people service if I didn't step up and say that this is a pretty important piece of property for the future. And why is there no discussion about buying the property off the developer? I mean, at some point, you get to a price where if he's not willing to sell, what's he up to? I mean, what does he care? If it's only money, offer him the money, unless you say that it's not that important to the town, which is a fair thing for you to say. But I just find it interesting that there's no discussion about the alternatives.
Those are comments, we've had that before, you know, people is like, piece of property is available, why doesn't the town buy it? How can the town buy it? I don't want to pay taxes for more property. Whoever lives there, if you want to save it, somebody could buy it and use it for whatever.
But is the price been set? I mean, it's only 5 acres. I mean,
Yeah.
what is the real estate value for 5 acres of property?
So suppose all the neighbors around there chipped in $100,000 apiece, you could buy it and keep it, make it a parkland.
But I heard, and maybe this is a rumor, but I heard that the developer didn't want to sell. But that doesn't make sense.
Not a rumor. The price has to be right, though.
Right, I mean, if the price is right, he's almost obligated to sell, unless he has other things in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it, thank you. All right. Secret, might as well do a secret, right? Start the process.
This is a seeker designating lead agency. Whereas the town of Webster planning.
Well, then he wasn't being offered enough time.
Go ahead.
You want to close the public hearing?
No.
Whereas the town of Webster Planning Board, hereinafter referred to as the planning board, is considering a subdivision site plan to develop a new public right-of-way and a plus or minus 610-foot road extension from Webster Road, which is New York State 250, and a proposed subdivision consisting of 8 single-family residential lots and 1 lot to be designated to the town of Webster for the ownership and maintenance of the proposed stormwater management facility within one of the parcels located at tax map number 065.180-1-027 in the town of Webster, Monroe County, New York, and it's described in the site plans dated May 14th, 2024, last revised July 16th, 2024, and all other relevant information submitted as of September 17th, 2024, the current application. And whereas the planning board has determined that the proposed action referenced above to be a type 1 action under Part 617 of the State Environmental Quality Review Regulations, and whereas the planning board has on Tuesday, August 6th, 2024, declared the agency with the requirement of coordinating with other involved and interested agencies for proposed action under the provisions of the State Environmental Quality Review Regulations. Whereas the planning board has provided written notices to this effect to the involved and interested agencies. And whereas the planning board has not received any written objections from the involved agencies to the board's being designated as lead agency under the secret regulations, and whereas the planning board has previously determined that it is the most appropriate agency to ensure the coordination of this action and for making the determination of significance thereon under the secret regulations. Now therefore be resolved that the town planning board does designate itself as lead agency for the action identified above.
Okay, that's the motion, we need a second.
Second.
A second.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Giardina?
Aye.
Mr. Malta?
Aye.
Mr. Coastal?
Aye.
Mr. Mixel?
Aye.
Mrs. Malton? Aye. Mr. Fisher?
All right, that makes us lead agency for this project. Now, the next thing we've got to do is information that we would basically want be addressed, am I correct?
Correct. I think at the August 6th meeting, I believe it was, the town had requested information regarding vegetation on the property. I don't believe any revised site plans were provided
Correct.
reflecting that information, so I don't know if the board wishes to address that now.
You want to present that at a future meeting then?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'll pull together that, we'll show the existing vegetation, or existing tree locations on the site.
Okay. And to me, personally, my areas of concern would be, I just made a couple of notes, is the traffic, the drainage, noise in the area, lights, what kind of lighting and so on would be in that area, and the vegetation and the trees. Those are the main things I think that biggest concern everyone has. So that being addressed, that should.
So that was added on one of the parts of the environmental review process is the preparation of environmental data. And because of the nature of this project and a number of things that we have concerns about, I think that all should be documented in a data statement.
Well, in fact, statement won't be required unless, or until the town board, excuse me, planning board, makes its finding relative to seeker. So if the planning board's going to make a decision as to.
I guess what I would be looking at is that we have a lot of questions that are being presented to the applicant. We have answers that are given back during presentations. There isn't really anything that's consolidated all into one document.
These are analysis and
Well, it would be things that supplement it from that.
Right, if the planning board gets to the point where they make a declaration that necessitates the EIS. I understand what you were saying, but you wouldn't require the applicant at this stage today to complete an EIS. Now, if after receiving feedback and supplemental information, the town board, you can come with the planning board, makes a positive declaration, thus requiring the EIS, then at that point, they can take that and set. So I'm saying, it's more, I guess, form over substance. I understand your point there, but I just don't want to require the applicant at this stage. In the EIS. To your point, if they're going to be providing information, it would probably be helpful to document that in a comprehensive document, where if you do get to that point, rather than recreating the wheel, it's already available.
That's more of a purpose. Technical response back to consolidate, to really address it as council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I might suggest is we, just to confirm traffic, drainage, lighting, and then vegetation, both trees and vegetation, the other vegetation on the site. Were there any other items that I missed when you?
Habitat,
Pardon me?
habitat, preservation. I thought that's what most of the comments were about.
So what we would offer is we'll resubmit the engineer's report, and we'll also include beefed up sections within that engineer's report, or provide you a narrative specifically to assist you with that determination.
All right, okay, that'll do it.
I got a question. Talking about the trees, and let's say there's a new survey done.
Who's speaking? We can't.
I'm sorry. Ken Yankowski, 768 Bell Arbor Trail. In addressing the trees, let's say a new survey or whatever's done to deem this tree can't be taken down, this can't be taken down. And I understand if the tree falls in the middle of the basement, you can't leave it there. If it falls in the middle of the road, you can't leave it there. But the trees that are deemed in the back lots that have to stay, are there any restrictions for the new homeowner once the home is purchased? That the homeowner can take that tree on himself?
Generally, that's the way it is. It's their property then.
Yeah. That's all I had.
It's not a protected, environmental protection overlay district. Something like that, then it would be a different story. In a case like private lot like this, there's no restriction to that.
Okay.
And a lot of times, you know, God, I've been in it so long. Trees, we've always wanted to save trees. I've gone to schools with maps of the town of Webster when they were first invented the airplane. And there's not a tree in sight. It was all farmland back in the early 1900s. It was all farmland. The trees were along Running Point Bay, down creek beds, things of that nature. And as time went on, developments and water came along, your developments started and built, not to drag us all out, but over time, what's happened, we've developed houses, you know, all over the place. But now, somebody brought up like Gasberry Lane or something, I think at the last meeting in that area over there. That used to be a cornfield. And everybody, somebody at the meeting said, oh my God, that's like a forest over there. Yeah, it is. But what's the first thing people do when they move in? They plant trees. And they plant good trees. And what happens with trees in a subdivision like this where they've grown together, one tree holds the other tree up. And this is reality. You take a bunch of these out and save this one and this one, the wind hits those trees ultimately, 9 times out of 10 are gonna fall down. And they're just an umbrella. They're a long pole with a couple branches on top. That's the reality of this. There are some good trees, I'm not saying there's not, but that's the way most of these woods are. So when you save a tree here and save a tree there, it's really like saving a telephone pole with an umbrella on the top.
But if the property were saved, it's a great carbon sink, right? And so we're living in times of climate change, and that's another great reason. But I keep hearing, for some
You
reason,
want to go
from...
back up and give us another lecture? Go ahead. You love it, I know.
I was just commenting that it's a carbon sink as it stands right now. And we are living in the days of global warming, okay? It's no longer debatable. That ship sailed 10 years ago. So this is a great carbon sink. These are important for the planet. But even as you're talking about trees, and if we save one and then it's just a freestanding umbrella with a couple branches, I can't say we, because I think we're all on the same page. It seems like you, and I'll do a universal you, you're missing the point of really what we're talking about, and almost every person has gotten up here to defend. And that is habitat. I don't know why that's falling on deaf ears. It's a thing. You had a gentleman or a woman here who spoke about, I don't know the street, Gasberry or something, and it was a gentleman, and the woods were taken down, and he witnessed it. Animals kind of at a loss, just like the property that went up the condos over by State Road, I believe. They wiped that forest out, and what did we have? Fox in the town of Webster.
Okay, let me say I agree with you.
Yes.
For once.
Yes, for once.
Okay, so we're in agreement on that.
Okay.
Now, what would you like us to do in regard to?
I believe you have asked me this the few times I have
Okay,
spoken.
answer. What do we do? Tell me.
Well, I would like, because I don't actually know if the
Get
developer,
all out of town and just.
I don't know if the developer who owns the property is here tonight. Is he or she here tonight? I'd be curious if you'd be willing to speak with us about what your magic price is, number one. Number two, you want me to have an answer to the preservation when all I can do is defer to this code or plan, comprehensive plan. I'm not even good with the verbiage. But I know that, I know there are enough people in the world, and we all have access to info. It is common knowledge, the communities that care for animals and habitats, that really represents well a town. And so, am I saying you're a deer killer or anyone up there? I'm not. And I don't have the answer for you, but I know this thing is at your feet. And we're just not talking about some woods, a couple trees. We're talking about, there's a wooded area across the street, there's the proposed development, and then there's this great trail. And you've got the photos of all these animals that they're laying right on the line.
But you're not answering my question.
Because I don't know what the answer is, because I can't recreate the code for you.
Yeah, this is what's in front of us right here.
But I think you've had some people tonight who have talked about, and Diana's got her hand up, for for violations. I'd encourage you to come up, you know better.
You're not, were you running this meeting now?
10 seconds, I've got,
No, okay, sure, go ahead.
so,
The board is hard to direction, not the audience.
so this is two things.
Go ahead.
One thing you could do, that site plan, alternate site plan, in the spirit of that we submitted to you, make it so the tree line is right up against every house. Keep it woodlot. Don't just preserve the big trees. Keep it literally scrub with the big trees in the back so they all hold each other together and the habitat's preserved. Or, give me a month to walk door to door to every single house in this town and try to get the money together and contact the town board about reconsidering this. Because I will do my darndest and I will get people together and we will knock on doors.
I would,
But here's the thing, if we did something like that here now, I don't even know if legally we can impose that full backyard woodlot. What happens if somebody wants to put a deck, a patio, a
Yeah.
swimming pool? What do we do?
Well, obviously it's.
Well, we can't talk back and forth here because it doesn't pick you up.
I think most
See
people
what
would
I'm
probably, I do see what you're saying. I think most people, if they're purchasing a woodlot, I think a lot of people would like to live in a woodlot. There's so many other homes where it's just like, you know, lawn, suburbia, just all running together. Making it a woodlot would actually increase the property value, I think. It would make it special. That's obviously if we can't.
And I didn't get a chance to see the document you gave us. You showed us your design of,
It wasn't mine, but somebody
Well,
else in the group came up with it, yeah.
until somebody finds a way to make water flow uphill, there's no way you could put the pond where you're
Right.
showing it. That's the
Yeah.
highest point on the site.
Well, I said we weren't
The water has to
engineers.
flow- It's all designed,
Sure.
engineered out.
Right, but the tree line could still be
Well,
closer
that's
to
a
the
different
houses,
story.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
We were getting up on that
Yeah, go
speaker.
ahead.
Okay. I'm Karen Mishler, 1271 Conifer Cove
Just
Lane.
what, repeat it again into the microphone.
Karen Mishler, 1271 Conifer Cove Lane. I've lived there since 1990. When Barry Barone did a wonderful job when he built that tract of 24 houses, and I don't know what the planning board stipulation was, but the amount of trees that he kept up, and I'm thinking that in our backyard, from the end of the house is probably maybe 15 to 20 feet, and after that, everything was just left as it was. And several years later, if you were to have driven down the street, you would have never suspected it was like a 1 or 2 year old neighborhood, because it was beautiful. So I don't know if there's any way to take a look back at what his stipulation was in terms of vegetation, but he did a wonderful job. So I think these houses are probably gonna go in, and if you can take a look at that, that might be a good blueprint. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I believe the engineer when he spoke initially, you brought up the fact of saving some footage of greenery in the back there, am I right?
That's correct,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what I thought. I thought that was brought up. So the intent was to do that. But you can only do so much of it. I don't know, we got 10 or 15 feet you were saving in there
Yes.
of the woods?
My house
Because,
my house has most of the backyard saved. Everything between the end of the house and maybe 15 feet, everything that way is woods.
She's saying she only has 15 feet of lawn.
15 or 20 feet of
That's
lawn.
the level.
Everything else is,
no, yeah, that's
Wood.
and scrub is wonderful.
Yeah.
Scrub is habitat.
all right, anything else, anyone? What else we got? That's about all we can do. This point, correct? All right, so we will, okay, we're not gonna, I won't close the public hearing, we'll keep it open. So future meetings, there'll be chance to speak with regard to whatever comes in. And with that, I thank you all for coming in and thanks for being courteous. Yeah, that's right. Actually, I'll make a motion, I'll make a motion to table
No, but I will put Rhonda Floyd.
conservation of.
Marlon, I'm sorry, that's what.
I went to South what's your first name, Ron? You know, it was probably in your class. Did you know?
The meeting's not over. Well, the meeting's, can you move over? Can you move over?
I'm sorry. Mr. Rowe, the gentleman who just came out here spoke, he said he wasn't hearing us.
We had a much larger parcel, which also included the expressway.
Are you guys sitting up to the microphone?
But times being what they were, he ended up with.
Fred, can you hear us okay?
And she was correct. You know, her statement was not.
There was a couple of you, like Derek was a little bit,
Say it again, listen.
Derek was a little bit fuzzy. You couldn't hear him too good, but
And some of them, or?
just some of you.
You know,
Okay, all right, well, thanks.
no, he was a builder.
All right, I guess with that, folks, we'll thank you all for coming in.
House on
And see you in another.
805, yeah. All right, I remember the house. I was in the house, it was yellow. Right, yes. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I remember. I was in that house. No, it was, we did work on it. It was 805.